at this point talking about the domestic politics that is completely engulfing Justin Trudeau, who's unable to save face. So much so that he was not present at the House of Commons yesterday evening, and this was amidst the very embarrassing felicitation that was done of a Nazi soldier just a couple of days ago. The Speaker had to step down. Questions that the opposition in the House of Commons is asking Justin Trudeau is that this has been the greatest diplomatic embarrassment that Canada has had to face. Now, will this bring a slump in the already deteriorating approval ratings of Trudeau? And what is the greater strategic implication of it, and how does India gain to take advantage of it? All right, Ambassador Mukherjee, we were talking about just now about this Nazi soldier, a 98-year-old veteran who has been felicitated. He's been given a rousing welcome. There is a standing applause for him, and soon after that there is a crisis. And what Justin Trudeau goes about saying is that it's a big embarrassment for the government. He apologizes for it, and he blames it on his members of the parliament and the Speaker for not having done their due diligence and research before inviting the man. Now, in such a situation, this is an opportunity, this is an advantage that has fallen on India's lap, which India should milk to the hilt.
But absolutely, Megha, what is important to remember here is that when India and US built up their strategic partnership towards the end of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's tenure, and which was taken to new heights by Prime Minister Modi, it was the American Jewish lobby, which is very powerful in the United States, which pushed very hard, because the American Jewish lobby has very, very close ties with India and with Israel, and we have very close ties with the Israelis. So, the American Jewish lobby is completely outraged by this incident in the Canadian Parliament, and so are the Canadian Jews in Canada, who also are very well off, and they play an important role in Canadian domestic politics. What the Canadians do not appreciate is that apparently Justin Trudeau is quite adept at passing the blame on embarrassing incidents which actually reduce the standing of Canada internationally to other people. Therefore, he insisted that the Speaker should resign, but when the leader of the Canadian opposition said that Trudeau should apologize to the Canadian nation and to Canadian Jews and to Jews worldwide for this very, very embarrassing incident, he hasn't done so actually, and as you rightly pointed out, instead he has not come to the House of Commons. But the point here is that there was an ugly incident in New York, where there were a lot of American Jews who went in a demonstration and apparently said that the Canadian Prime Minister must resign. This is bound to build up in US, within Canada and in Israel.
Yeah.
So, these are very important partners of Canada, and I don't see how this time Trudeau can get away without making a public apology. And coming as it does so close to the manner in which he has completely destroyed the India-Canada bilateral relationship, I don't think his ratings could be very high, Megha. I'm told that his ratings are falling in an alarming manner on a daily basis, but
right.
I'm sure our other panelists from Canada could elaborate on that. I'd be interested to hear from you on that. Thank you.
Wyatt Claypool on the telecast with me. He's a senior correspondent at National Telegraph. Wyatt, you know, if you could shed more light, because what we've been hearing and reading in a number of media agencies, your newspapers, your online publications, and the kind of impression that we get is that Canada is majorly upset with Justin Trudeau, whether it is about the debacle of his statement that was made against India, and I think more so with this big Nazi soldier being felicitated in the House of Commons.
Yeah, we still haven't seen the Nazi scandal sort of show up in the polling yet. Obviously, it takes about a week or so for people to be polled on that issue, and people always tend to react more strongly towards domestic matters than they do foreign affairs. A lot of people just obviously usually don't pay attention to politics, and they especially don't usually pay attention to foreign policy, which is sort of like one step more complex than usually domestic matters because they don't really affect people as much. But right now, Justin Trudeau is only sitting around 27% approval rating in some of the more reliable polls. When you're at 27% and you're the natural governing party, like the Liberals tend to be regarded as, that is absolutely disgustingly low. And the other guess was 100% right that Justin Trudeau did not actually apologize for this Waffen-SS scandal, because what he did was that he basically just said, I know that Speaker Rhoda has apologized, and I think that blah, 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 like he's done all the right things, but he never actually specifically said that he or his government apologized. He just said that it's bad, and I understand how Jewish Canadians are upset, and Mr. Rhoda has apologized, which is, again, Justin Trudeau has no ability to take any responsibility for his actions, because even though Rhoda might have invited the man, the thing is that the PMO would have been in charge of actually vetting all these people. Another thing that happened last night, and even though Justin Trudeau was kind of playing hard to get yesterday when it comes to answering questions in parliamentary question period and other stuff like that, there was a late night caucus meeting. And whenever something like that happens, you know that they're talking about the future of the prime minister. I'm going to be a little bit surprised if he resigns, but I guarantee that they're going to force his hand in making a lot of like major changes to the way that he operates as the prime minister.
Okay, that's interesting. But also, when you talk about his approval ratings at an all-time low of 27%, when we see recession in the country that has never seen the kind of recession, we're talking about unaffordable housing, we're talking about rising grocery prices. Even the allies of Justin Trudeau, I'm talking about Jagmeet Singh of the NDP, are going all guns blazing against him. Do you think there could be a likelihood of the government falling even before 2025 general election?
I don't think so. I think Jagmeet Singh is sword rattling right now, because the biggest criticism of him is that while he's supposed to be the more left-wing party holding Justin Trudeau accountable from his left, is that Jagmeet Singh votes for every single thing that Justin Trudeau puts forward, and no scandal will ever cause Justin Trudeau to stop supporting the government. Every once in a while he makes sort of negative sounds towards Justin Trudeau, but then he just continues giving him all the support that he promised to give him. But the reason why we're not going to see an election before 2025, in my opinion, is that both the Liberals and the NDP's polling is bad, and their fundraising is even worse. Justin Trudeau, in the last 3 quarters, is having his fundraising numbers more than doubled by the Conservative Party, and he actually has a closer fundraising number to the NDP than he does to the Conservatives, even though the NDP is usually considered the distant third party. But it's just one of those, he's in this situation where even if he called an election, he doesn't have the money to actually run good candidates in every single riding. So I think that he's going to just sort of hunker down and see if he can weather this storm, and he'll try and probably pick a better time for an election, or have to wait until he must absolutely call an election in September of 2025. Okay.
Also, if you could shed more light, because I'd be very interested in knowing the Canadian point of view in terms of how the domestic politics plays, is the fact that how is the Canadian population, Canadian people, perceiving the India Canada standoff? Are these people, is the common man of Canada at this point of time saying that, oh my God, this is another debacle by the Canadian Prime Minister, and we'll have to live with it, or is there more support to Trudeau on this matter?
Like the Liberal Party base generally always supports him, or at least the hardcore center of the party will always back him up. The problem for this India-Canada tension right now is that I would guarantee you the vast majority of Canadians don't actually know what's going on. But I would agree that a lot of Canadians are just sort of thinking to themselves like, oh goodness, why are we in another situation with another country? Justin Trudeau has a history of going to other countries and kind of picking fights with other leaders by claiming they're not progressive enough for him, or basically trying to call them out for the perceived sins that they've committed, while at the same time Justin Trudeau, as one of the most corrupt Western world leaders, is never actually, no one ever takes a shot at him, because other foreign leaders are actually usually respectful when they meet up with the leader of another country. But I think with a lot of Canadians, they're just thinking that it's just not the time to be picking a fight with India right now. On the domestic front, the economy's terrible. He's sort of seen as a bit of a dictator when it comes to social issues. If you do not 100% agree with him on his woke agenda, he's going to call you a racist bigot. He's going to try and shut down your bank accounts. He's going to, do all this other sort of stuff. So when he starts going after another government for like supposedly being authoritarian, I think a lot of Canadians roll their eyes at him these days.
Absolutely. But, Ambassador Mukherjee, you heard it from what Wyatt had to say, and the larger consensus amongst the Canadians of how they view their Prime Minister. Now, internationally speaking as well, Trudeau coming across as a very weak leader. I remember at G20 in Bali that had taken place on the sidelines, there was this pull aside that had been done by Xi Jinping, the Chinese premier, and it looks as if he's scolding Justin Trudeau. And Justin Trudeau is left to his devices, he's trying to explain, but to no avail. So these kind of developments that take place, and you mentioned about how in New York he was just evading questions because there was a large number of just Jewish protesters asking him to go back home or apologize and so on and so forth. Has Justin Trudeau become a bit of a joke globally? And obviously the fact that if he really is being taken as a serious, strong political leader.
Well, more than anything else, Megha, if I was Canadian, I would be very concerned that my Prime Minister has become a liability for the country. That is what is important. Canada is a vibrant democracy. It surely deserves better than a Prime Minister like Justin Trudeau. And it would be interesting to ascertain from our Canadian guest whether, like in London, there could be a rebellion within his own party, and he could be replaced before 2025 by some other leader from within his own party who would have more credibility than him, whether there would be such a candidate and whether such a possibility could arise. Because it would appear to me that for Trudeau, who has been badly damaged internationally and domestically, to hang on to power with the support of a Khalistani fundamentalist party till elections are actually due, legally speaking, in September 2025, is it actually possible? Because in a democracy, these things matter. Approval ratings matter, the economy matters, the affordable housing matters, and the perception that the leader of the government coming from a great country like Canada is not only the laughingstock internationally, but has become a domestic liability. I don't see how he can possibly continue in Canada till 2025. It would be very interesting to know whether he has any people to challenge him. The manner in which, for instance, we saw in the UK during the Brexit, when there were 3 prime ministers in quick succession who were brought down by the backbenchers. Do they have such a concept in Canada? And can backbenchers actually bring down a ruling prime minister? That would be interesting to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Why would you like to respond? Also the parliamentary system and how the democracy of Canada works is akin to what India or United Kingdom work, keeping in mind we are the Commonwealth nations. So a similar sort of a political play out that happens in terms of elections and so on and so forth. But could there be a leader that could emerge that could take the place of Justin Trudeau? Because I don't know, a no confidence motion, is it even possible? Because you say up until 2025 there is no likelihood of any election taking place or any sort of displacement taking place that is going to remove Trudeau from his position.
Yeah, just 2 things. I will, even though I don't like the NDP, I will mention that they're not really a Khalistani party, or it's more so that just the NDP is so woke that they will never call out Khalistanis, so they can have basically a very soft on Khalistani, if not supportive Khalistani leader, and they'll never say anything about it. That's just a side issue. But with Justin Trudeau, the reason why I don't think that there's going to be an election before 2025, and you're 100% correct, just like in the UK and in India, you can have a leader removed by their own party. The prime minister can change just because backbench MPs are not happy with them. But the problem right now in Canada is Justin Trudeau's the one thing that he's done very well is done a systematic brain drain of the Liberal Party. There's not a brain left in that party and no charisma that could actually replace him. So he's put his party in between a bit of a rock and a hard place. He has a hyper-progressive base who shifted over to the party from the NDP when he had first become the leader back in 2013, then the prime minister in 2015. So there's a hardcore base that would probably leave the party if he ever stops being the leader. And then the Liberals also, even if they might grab up more moderate voters who are maybe thinking about voting Conservative if they replace him, the people that they have options for replacing him are, just bankers, people who aren't exactly super charismatic. You have Mark Carney's names get thrown around. Chrystia Freeland, who's just not perceived as a particularly charismatic or competent minister at the moment. So right now, Justin Trudeau's biggest asset is that he's kind of the best of the worst that the Liberals have in terms of leadership material.
Okay. Also an important question in terms of how the Canadians have voted in the past. They have been showing loyalty to the Liberals more than the Conservatives. Now, what are the chances that Conservatives come to power? And I have also been reading reports how there. I don't know. I mean, there is a collusion of sorts. There is more bonhomie that is being showcased between the Conservative Party and the government of India. Keeping in mind, back in 2015, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi had visited. He had visited Canada, and back in the day, the Prime Minister was Mr. Harper, if I'm not wrong, and he was a Conservative Party leader, and he was the Prime Minister from the Conservative Party. So is India and Canada more aligned if there were Conservatives that came to power?
Well, yeah, the Conservatives under Stephen Harper actually took issues like terrorism seriously, and even under the Liberals with Jean Chrétien, security was actually a much more major issue. So at the time, you would have seen a lot more people taking the presence of Khalistanis operating in Canada far more seriously. But I don't think the Conservatives would exactly be working with India to try and undermine Trudeau right now. But I think if it's pretty much guaranteed at this point that the Conservative Party will win the next election, and it's just determining whether it's going to be a slim majority or a very large majority at this point. And I think as soon as the Conservatives win the next election, I think they're going to be much more willing to work with India closely to make sure that Canada isn't fostering extremism that puts the safety of Indians at risk.
That's interesting to know. So Ambassador Mukherjee, that answers quite a few questions and also gives a perception of how Canadians view the current state of affairs domestically and in terms of the geostrategy, the kind of geopolitics that Justin Trudeau is trying to achieve for the number of compulsions, domestic and otherwise, that he has to follow to stay in power. So what's the conclusion of it all? And as White says that there is more probability of the Conservatives coming to power, how is the Canadian government's equation going to be with the Democrats in America?
Well, first of all, we've always had an excellent relationship with the Canadian Conservative Party. And when Prime Minister Harper was in power, he went with our Indian Prime Minister to the place where the Kanishka went down to pay homage, because the families gather there every year, because till today the perpetrators of that terrible terrorist act, the bomb maker, the person who placed the bomb, and actually it was 329 people who died there, and 2 baggage handlers in Japan, bringing the total number of deaths to 331. And that would be impossible for Justin Trudeau to make such a gesture, because then the Khalistanis would immediately withdraw support from his government. So we do look forward to a conservative government in Canada. And as far as the American-US elections are concerned, Megha, it is absolutely right now impossible to predict whether President Biden will win or Trump will prevail. So in any event, whether it's conservative or liberal, the Americans and Canadians have a relationship, historical relationship, and they will always find a way out. But as far as India is concerned, we have always had much better support from the Canadian Conservative Party because they understand our security concerns. They don't approve of harboring terrorists. They have never agreed that a small, very small group of fundamentalists should hold an entire bilateral relationship with such an important country like India hostage, particularly a country that has a huge trade relationship with Canada. That trade pact is now paralyzed. We have stopped all visas, which means that very soon the travel between India and Canada will come down sharply. It's just a matter of time. The Indian students who were going to Canada and were helping the Canadian economy revive, they are now looking at other alternative destinations, Singapore, Australia, United States, etc. Because the Indian students who go are well heeled, they go with a lot of money. That money goes to fund Canada's economy and Canada's universities. And it is very clear that there has been a fundamental rethink on the part of Indian families also, because they feel that their children won't be safe in such an environment where these Khalistanis first said that please all the non-Sikhs should go back to India. Then they put up posters calling for the assassination of the Indian High Commissioner and the Consul General in Toronto and Vancouver. I understand one or two of the hoardings have been taken down in Surrey, but other hoardings have not yet been taken down, which means that the Indian families in India, as you know, Megha, we are a very close-knit family unit in India.
Yeah.
If we feel our children are not safe in Canada, we will not send them to Canada, we'll send them elsewhere. We'll send them to United States, we'll send them to Australia, we'll send them to Singapore, etc.
Yeah.
And it is the Canadians and the Canadian economy which will suffer. So,
absolutely.
But despite that, I think as long as Trudeau is there and we are stuck with him, the relationship is in a free fall and it's going to become much, much worse as the months go on. That's my prediction, Megha.
All right. Thank you, Void, for joining us on the telecast and putting in your perspective. Ambassador Mukherjee, it's always a pleasure to have you on our telecast on NewsX. I am out of time and I thank you all for watching NewsX.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.